Part 43. I am immortal and I raise a divine beast in another world. Author, Chen Wunian. Chapter 421. Little Diamond, it's done, Chen Hao said. The huge body of Little Diamond Star reappeared in front of Chen Hao in human form. Chen Hao looked at Little Diamond, and then he looked back. Information processor, where is the celestial body closest to us with a mass lower than Little Diamond? As Chen Hao's voice fell, a huge transparent sphere appeared in front of Chen Hao. A green dot representing Chen Hao's location can be seen in the transparent sphere, and countless celestial bodies can be seen around the green dot. The celestial body closest to Chen Hao with a mass lower than Little Diamond is a gas giant planet. The gas giant planet is located in a planetary system 107 light-years away from Chen Hao. Chen Hao enlarged the planetary system. When he saw it, Chen Hao felt a little more curious. Because Chen Hao found that there was another planetary system next to this planetary system. A red star was orbiting next to a massive blue star. The two stars were far apart, but the red star was orbiting the blue star. There are planets orbiting around these two stars. There are 13 planets orbiting the blue star, and 6 planets orbiting the red star. The blue star is a blue dwarf with a mass of 1.5 to 2.5 solar masses. The red star is a red dwarf, the smallest star, with a mass generally above 105 Jupiter masses. A binary star system refers to a planetary system formed by two stars orbiting each other. Generally speaking, one of the two stars is the primary star and the other is the companion star. The companion star will orbit the primary star. Obviously, this red dwarf is the companion star of this blue dwarf. There are 19 planets in this binary star system. That's good. Chen Hao smiled. Let's go here. The information processor builds a warp engine channel with this binary star system as the destination. A black circular hole appeared in front of Chen Hao. Chen Hao was 107 light-years away from the destination. The warp engine currently built by the information processor can travel at 10 times the speed of light, which means that the destination can be reached in 10.7 years. Change a card appeared in front of Chen Hao. It was the God Realm Star card. Chen Hao looked at the little diamond. The little diamond nodded slightly. Chen Hao smiled. Remember to tell them that I will continue my journey. Hearing this, the little diamond said, okay. The little diamond's body turned into white light and sank into the God Realm Star card. Chen Hao put the God Realm Star card into the Universal Book. He looked at the black hole in front of him and walked in. It was dark in front of him, and then it was bright. Chen Hao came back to his senses. In front of him, he could see a gas giant planet with red light all over his body. At the same time, there was light coming from the right, and the light was particularly bright. Chen Hao looked to the right. There was a blue-white ball of light in the distance. The light emitted by the ball of light illuminated the surroundings. Chen Hao used the little diamond to share his vision with him. He could see the entire appearance of the planetary system he was in at the moment. At present, the field of view radius of Little Diamond has also been improved. The last time Chen Hao used this ability, he could only see the radius of the distance between two planets, but now Chen Hao can observe all the celestial bodies in this planetary system. Through the field of view given by Little Diamond, Chen Hao found that this planetary system was just like what he saw in his 3D image. There were 13 planets around this blue dwarf, and the distances and sizes of these planets were almost the same. However, Chen Hao could not see the planetary system of another red dwarf through the field of view shared by Little Diamond. Is the companion star too far away? Chen Hao closed the field of view provided by Little Shadow. Forget it, it doesn't matter. First swallow all the planets surrounding this blue dwarf, and then talk slowly. Thinking about it, Chen Hao's eyes fell on the gas giant in front of him. Huh? This guy, what's the situation? The gas giant Chen Hao saw now was completely different from other gas giants Chen Hao had seen before. Chen Hao had seen all the changes from planets to sub-brown dwarfs from Little Diamond. But the gas giant in front of him was very strange. It was rotating. When it rotated, you could see its thick clouds, but it was different from the gas giants. The surface of this gas giant was bright red. Chen Hao took a look at the information displayed on the translucent blue screen. Hot Jupiter, unnamed planet. Hot Jupiter is a type of gas giant. 2.1 Jupiter masses. Hot Jupiter. Chen Hao thought to himself and continued to look at the information of this thing. The gas giant was too close to the star and received a lot of heat, causing the surface gas to be in a high temperature state. Under the influence of high temperature, the surface was red. Seeing this information, Chen Hao stretched his eyebrows. Is it roasted red? Chen Hao smiled. This is very interesting. In the solar system, there are Uranus and Neptune, which are also gas planets, but because they are too far away, they are always low temperature, and eventually a lot of gas is frozen into ice, and the surface is blue and dark blue. But this one is the opposite. Others are frozen blue, but this one is baked red. The universe is full of surprises. 2.1 Jupiter masses. This mass is just right. Thinking of this, Chen Hao took out the God Realm Star card from the Universal Book. Transform. The God Realm Star card lighted up slightly. A white light appeared in front of Chen Hao, and the figure of Little Diamond appeared in front of Chen Hao. Little Diamond looked at Chen Hao. She slowly opened her eyes and looked at Chen Hao. When she saw Chen Hao, her eyes lit up. Master. Chen Hao smiled. Now we have arrived at another planetary system. There are many planets here. You swallow all those planets. Little Diamond was startled. She turned her head and looked at the planets beside her. Her eyes were shining, and then she looked at Chen Hao. Okay. She said, Master, you have been walking outside for so long, and you are tired. You can go back to the God realm to rest. I will swallow these masses and then go to find the master. Hearing this, Chen Hao smiled. Yeah. Little Diamond moved her body and disappeared on the spot. Chen Hao looked at the figure of Little Diamond. He looked at this planetary system. Looking at the huge gas giants orbiting these planets. According to the number of these gas giants, so many gas giants are enough to turn the small diamond into a real brown dwarf, right? Let's not think about this for now. Chen Hao still remembers that he had promised Huo Fen before that he would give them a few planets for them to study. Gas planets are definitely not enough, we have to find a few rocky planets. The planets orbiting near this blue dwarf seem to be gas planets. I don't know what the planets on the red dwarf side are like. Chen Hao turned on the 3D projection and glanced at it. When he saw it, he had a hint of novelty in his eyes. The planets orbiting near the red dwarf are all rocky planets. I am immortal and I raise a divine beast in another world. Author, Chen Wunian. Chapter 422. It's really interesting, a binary star system, a blue dwarf and a red dwarf, but the blue dwarf is surrounded by gas giant planets, while the red dwarf is surrounded by rocky planets. Why does this happen? Chen Hao doesn't know the reason. Of course, this does not prevent Chen Hao from collecting those rocky planets. Chen Hao came to the red star and the planetary system where the red dwarf is located through the warp engine channel. When Chen Hao came out of the warp engine channel, the scene he saw made him slightly stunned. There is a planet in front of Chen Hao, but this planet is surrounded by a huge and flat metal ring, which surrounds the planet like a planetary ring. Chen Hao can be very sure that this is an artificially made technological ring. Chen Hao uses the vision shared by the Little Diamond. Through this perspective, he can observe the situation inside and outside the planet in 360 degrees without blind spots. On the surface of the planet, you can see many buildings with black as the main tone. But these buildings are different from human skyscrapers. These buildings are oval in shape and cover the ground, looking like an inverted black metal bowl. These buildings are large and small, all gathered together to form a city. In the streets of the city, you can see groups of giant ants walking on the streets. These ants have two antennae on their heads, and their whole body looks like a giant black ant. They are of different sizes, some are very huge, and their height is estimated to be 5 or 6 meters. Some are 2 meters high, and some are smaller, only 1 meter high. Chen Hao noticed that some giant ants look like soldiers. The exoskeletons on these soldier ants now look like the exoskeleton armor developed by humans, covering them. They stand there, with a pair of claws that look like human palms. Unlike human palms, they don't need gloves because their hands are naturally exoskeleton armor. At this moment, they raise their front half of their bodies and hold something similar to a gun in their hands. They stand on both sides of the street and walk around, as if they are training. This is a civilization, an ant civilization. Unexpectedly, this kind of civilization actually exists in this world. Suddenly, Chen Hao noticed something flying out of the artificial planetary ring. Chen Hao looked closely and found a fully armed giant ant flying out of the artificial planetary ring. Although it is called an ant, it now looks more like a giant mecha in the form of an ant. It is holding an unknown gun, with blue flames behind it, flying towards this side, and the speed has exceeded the speed of sound. Seeing this guy appear and fly towards this side, Chen Hao realized that things can live in the artificial planetary ring. Moreover, now this ant civilization has obviously discovered Chen Hao's existence. Did they send soldiers directly? I don't know what they are going to do. It flew in front of Chen Hao and slowly stopped. This thing is 6 meters tall, like a giant, flying in the air, a pair of red compound eyes reflecting Chen Hao's appearance. On this thing's forehead, there are 2 tentacles, the tentacles are glowing green, the light is flickering. The other party sent a message through chemical information. Do you want to translate it? The mechanical voice of the information processor sounded in Chen Hao's mind. Hearing this voice, Chen Hao's heart moved. This ant civilization is obviously different from those of the green civilization. The text information used by the green civilization is unified, but the ant civilization in front of him has its own way of speaking. If I don't translate it, I will definitely not understand it. Translate it, I want to know what it said, Chen Hao said aloud. At this time, a unique voice, this voice is similar to the cry of insects, a little sharp. Get out of this planetary system, otherwise you will die. The voice is sharp and firm, full of warnings. Too crazy, right? Chen Hao is still a little interested in this special civilization, but he didn't expect that this civilization is so crazy. Chen Hao crossed his arms and looked at the guy in front of him with interest. Information processor, translate my words to it. Information processor receives your instructions. Chen Hao stared at the guy in front of him and said lightly, tell it, I won't leave, so what? Almost at the same time Chen Hao finished speaking, the warrior of the ant civilization immediately raised the gun in his hand and pointed the gun at Chen Hao. Boom! A laser shot out from the muzzle. The moment this white beam emerged from the muzzle, it became 3 meters wide. In an instant, the laser wrapped around Chen Hao's whole body. Chen Hao looked at the white light in front of him, and his eyes were white. He frowned slightly. The green civilization was like this before, and this civilization is also like this now. In this vast universe, the relationship between civilization and alien civilization is estimated to be only 3 kinds of expulsion, obedience, or death. The light dispersed. The big bug was not surprised at all when it saw Chen Hao, who was unharmed. Instead, it raised the gun in its hand forward, and a blue light spit out from the mouth of the gun. The light condensed into a shape, and the gun became a hilt at this moment, and the light became a sword. Seeing this, Chen Hao's eyes had a hint of novelty. Light sword. Chen Hao glanced at the blue screen in front of him and looked at the information of the light sword. Nuclear weapon, nuclear sword. Nuclear weapons are also called God-killing weapons. When technology reaches a certain level, Highly intelligent life forms will study genetic composition, combine rare elements through gene editing, change their own genes and elements, and use this method to make the flesh and blood body undergo genetic evolution. Most advanced life forms call this process God-making. When highly intelligent life forms undergo genetic evolution, they realize that God-making is successful. The bodies of civilized gods have strong genes and extremely high density, and ordinary weapons cannot hurt them. And God-killing weapons can cause damage to the other party. The nuclear sword uses rare geomagnetic crystals in the universe to absorb a large amount of nuclear energy, and condenses the huge energy generated by nuclear energy into the form of a sword. The nuclear weapon formed can produce strong destructive power to high-density bodies. Therefore, it is also called a God-killing weapon. Looking at the information on the screen, Chen Hao's eyes glowed. He couldn't help but think of Xiaoying and the others. Chen Hao remembered very clearly that Xiaoying's evolution was genetic evolution. In other words, Xiaoying's genetic evolution was similar to the artificial God-making of civilization. Chen Hao looked at the nuclear sword in front of him. Can this thing hurt him? Suddenly, the ant moved, and blue flames shot out from behind it, and it rushed towards Chen Hao. The nuclear sword in his hand swung and slashed towards Chen Hao's body. Chen Hao did not dodge. The blade of the nuclear sword fell on Chen Hao's shoulder. With a swing, it swept past Chen Hao. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I am immortal and I raise a divine beast in another world. Author, Chen Wunian. Chapter 423. The nuclear sword was too big. When the blade of the nuclear sword covered Chen Hao, it almost swallowed up half of Chen Hao's body. The blade slashed along Chen Hao's shoulder and passed through Chen Hao's body. After the sword was swung, the sword was still a sword, and the man was still a man. Chen Hao was still standing there, without a single scar on his body. The giant ant stared at Chen Hao. This guy was covered with black exoskeleton armor, and it was impossible to see what his expression was. Chen Hao glanced at the ant civilization warrior, then turned his head to look at the nuclear sword held in the hand of the giant ant in front of him, and then looked at his shoulder. Just a moment ago, Chen Hao felt strangely that this thing was not solid. The blade of the nuclear sword was not made of solid, so it could easily pass through Chen Hao. Chen Hao understood that this nuclear sword was actually more like a laser beam with stronger destructive power. Laser beams exist in the form of plasma, and in real life, flames are the closest to plasma. The flames passed through the body, so it was impossible for them to touch the body. When the ant-armored warrior saw that the attack did not work, it immediately made the next reaction. It stretched out its left hand and stretched it towards Chen Hao. Its hand made of exoskeleton armor fell on Chen Hao. The ant warrior's hand fell in front of Chen Hao's chest and touched it. Chen Hao frowned and looked at the ant warrior. What is this guy doing? What the ant warrior did at this moment was not an attack, but a touch. As soon as the ant warrior touched Chen Hao, its claws were retracted, and the nuclear sword in its right hand slashed at Chen Hao again. The nuclear sword swept across Chen Hao's body again, but it did not cause any damage to Chen Hao. When the ant warrior saw this, its body suddenly retreated, retreating 100 meters to keep a distance from Chen Hao. What are you? The ant warrior's voice had a hint of doubt. The series of actions of the ant warrior just now made Chen Hao a little puzzled. But soon, Chen Hao reacted. The ant warrior had previously used 2 attacks on Chen Hao, first with the laser cannon and then with the nuclear sword, but neither of these 2 attacks could cause any harm to Chen Hao. Let's not talk about the laser cannon, let's talk about the nuclear sword. The nuclear sword is a god-killing weapon. Even the artificial gods, as the crystallization of technology, are afraid of the nuclear sword. In the eyes of the ant warrior, there is no substance in the world that the nuclear sword cannot destroy. But now the nuclear sword is ineffective against the creature in front of him, so the ant warrior believes that Chen Hao is not a substance. So the ant warrior judged that Chen Hao might be just a projection or something like that, not a real existence, so it subconsciously touched Chen Hao with its hand to prove its conjecture. But after touching, it found that Chen Hao actually existed. When it found this, it swung another sword, and the result was still the same. This scared it. After realizing this, Chen Hao looked at the ant warrior in front of him and raised his hand to the ant warrior. I love peace and don't like fighting, but you want my life. Then I have to return the favor accordingly. The ant warrior moved his body, turned around, and the engine on his body sprayed blue flames, and he flew towards the direction of the planet. Chen Hao looked at the ant warrior's actions and used the ability of the small diamond. The small diamond has the ability to control its own gravity, and similarly, Chen Hao also has the ability to control gravity shared by the small diamond. The amount of gravity that Chen Hao can control depends entirely on the mass of the small diamond. When Chen Hao locked the ant warrior as a target, he applied gravity to the ant warrior. The ant warrior, who was about to escape, paused, and its huge body seemed to be pulled by an invisible force, and flew towards Chen Hao. At this moment, this thing is the material that fell into the atmosphere of the planet and fell rapidly. Bang! The huge metal body of the ant warrior hit Chen Hao's palm directly. At the moment of collision, the giant body suddenly sank, and the whole body was compressed by the terrifying gravity. In less than 0.1 seconds, the dark body was completely compressed into Chen Hao's palm. Boom! Accompanied by a loud noise. Chen Hao's palm exploded. The terrifying flames spread out, instantly engulfing the space where Chen Hao was. The scorching flames illuminated the surroundings. The flames spread out, and Chen Hao was standing in the same place. He looked at his palm, and there was a black substance less than the size of a bean in his palm. Obviously, this black substance was the ant warrior just now. Compressed by the terrifying gravity of the little diamond, the huge body of the ant warrior only had this little bit left at this moment, but even if it was only this little bit, the mass was equivalent to the entire ant warrior just now. The density of this little thing was very high. Chen Hao played with the little thing in his hand, thinking about the explosion that just happened. Why did it explode suddenly? Chen Hao thought for a moment. Information processor, explain. The target equipment nuclear energy core, when compressed by gravity, the core stability was destroyed, and the nuclear energy leaked and caused the explosion. The voice of the information processor came. Nuclear energy core. In the way of understanding on Earth, the nuclear energy core can also be called a nuclear fusion battery, which is used to provide power for nuclear energy swords and armor. Hearing this, Chen Hao was shocked. Nuclear fusion battery, in simple terms, this guy carried a hydrogen bomb as a battery. No wonder there was an explosion just now. The development of technology to this point really surprised Chen Hao a little. He looked forward, looking at the ant civilization planet in front of him. Chen Hao now has two choices. One is to destroy the planet directly, and the other is to turn the planet into a card. How to do it? When Chen Hao was thinking, he suddenly noticed that there were doors on the artificial planetary ring, and those doors were opened one after another. From those doors, one after another ant warriors wearing exoskeleton armor flew out. Chen Hao was stunned. These ant warriors appeared densely in Chen Hao's field of vision. Chen Hao crossed his arms and said lightly, "Human sea tactics." He smiled, interesting. Chen Hao has forgotten how long it has been, how long no one dared to show hostility in front of him. Most lives see him, either calling him Master or Lord Creator. It just so happens that the Beast Masters have been very idle recently, and they have nothing to do, so it's just right for the Beast Masters to come out and relax. Book. The Universal Book appeared in front of Chen Hao. Chen Hao raised his head and glanced at the ant warriors, who were spraying blue engines and approaching the side quickly. However, Chen Hao was still a little distance away from them, and it would take some time. Chen Hao opened the Universal Book and took out the God Realm card. Transform. The God Realm card lit up slightly. A white light flew out from the God Realm star card and landed in front of Chen Hao, and Xiaoying's figure appeared in front of Chen Hao. Xiaoying slowly opened her eyes and saw Chen Hao. The four eyes met. Xiaoying's eyes lit up slightly. Master. Chen Hao smiled, I think you are also idle in the God Realm star, so it's a good time for you to come out and exercise. Xiaoying was startled. She turned her head to look at the ant warriors behind her. She looked back at Chen Hao. Master, let Xiaoying deal with these guys. Xiaoying moved her body. She flew to the front, looking at the ant warriors in front of her coldly. I am immortal and I raise a divine beast in another world. Author, Chen Wunian. Chapter 424. Chen Hao waved his hand, and a metal platform appeared in the void beneath his feet. Vines grew out of the platform, and the vines formed a chair. Chen Hao sat on the chair, crossed his legs, leaned on the back of the chair, and looked at the little shadow in front of him. Xiaoying has not participated in any battles since she entered the planetary level and evolved into planetary genes. Now is the time for Xiaoying to move around, and Chen Hao can also take a look at the strength of Xiaoying, who has evolved to the planetary level through genes. At this moment, in front of Xiaoying, those ant warriors wearing exoskeleton armor were flying towards this direction. They were extremely numerous and densely packed, estimated to be at least thousands or hundreds. Too many. Xiaoying took out a card, waved her hand, and the card flew out. Under Chen Hao's gaze, the card turned into a black half-moon wheel. After the half-moon wheel appeared, it moved instantly. It roared towards the ant warriors. Suddenly, the half-moon wheel disappeared out of thin air. When it reappeared, the half-moon wheel appeared in front of the nearest ant warrior. The ant warrior's body was swept by the half-moon wheel, and his body was split into two halves. The half-moon wheel disappeared in place, and when it reappeared, it appeared in front of another ant warrior. The ant warrior was also cut into two pieces instantly. This half-moon wheel disappears and appears again, and its speed has reached supersonic speed. Fits suddenly disappear at supersonic speeds and suddenly appear at supersonic speeds. The swarms of ant warriors were rapidly disappearing at a speed visible to the naked eye. When Chen Hao saw this scene, there was a hint of novelty in his eyes. Chen Hao originally thought that Xiaoying would just hold the weapon and charge forward like before. Unexpectedly, Xiaoying started to use this attack method. It has to be said that the speed of this half-moon wheel combined with the teleportation ability harvests life very quickly. Boom boom boom. Almost instantly, Chen Hao could see sparks blooming in the dark space. Soon there were thousands of ant warriors, and before they could even get close, they were all reduced to ashes or wreckage. Xiaoying retracted the half-moon wheel weapon. She withdrew her gaze and looked at Chen Hao. She moved and appeared in front of Chen Hao. She looked at Chen Hao. Master, it's done. Hearing this, Chen Hao smiled. Can weapons also teleport? Xiaoying hummed. Yes, but, Master, what I am using now is not an ordinary teleportation. Chen Hao blinked. What can you say? Teleportation or unusual teleportation? Xiaoying said, previously, Yinglong and Dazu worked together to develop the warp engine, which uses the technology of compressing space to move faster than light speed, but this method is very slow. Slow? Is this still slow? Xiaoying said, in the past few decades, I have discovered the existence of wormholes in the process of studying dark matter. In our world, there are countless wormholes. Wormholes are similar to warp engine channels, but warp drive tunnels are artificial, while wormholes exist naturally. When we use the warp engine to move, we need to let the warp engine build a channel. This process is very long, but wormholes are natural and exist everywhere. But there is a huge difference between wormholes and warp drive channels. Wormholes are very small, and only quantum can enter the wormhole channel. The weapon I am using now is a quantum weapon. My celestial computer can break it down into quanta, enter the wormhole, reorganize it, and then attack. The speed of movement is more than 100 times faster than the warp channel. After listening to what Xiaoying said, Chen Hao's evaluation was, "Do you understand or not?" They are all things that I have heard but have no idea about and cannot understand. Chen Hao didn't bother to dwell on these issues. He smiled and said, "Well done." Suddenly, Chen Hao noticed movement out of the corner of his eye, and he looked towards the planet. "I saw a white light coming from the side and hitting me." Chen Hao only had time to frown. Boom! A terrifying laser beam with a diameter of 100 meters swallowed up Chen Hao and Xiaoying in an instant. The laser beam dissipates. Chen Hao stood there, but the platform and vine chairs he had just built were all evaporated into plasma by the terrifying high temperature and dissipated. Chen Hao frowned and looked at the source of the light. These ant civilizations really don't know how to live or die. Chen Hao originally didn't know how to deal with this civilization, but now it seems that they have made their own choice. Xiaoying, Chen Hao said, and he looked at where Xiaoying was. "Enter the eye." Chen Hao was startled. Xiaoying disappeared. "Where are the people?" Chen Hao had a hint of doubt in his eyes. Chen Hao looked around, and suddenly his eyes were attracted by the omnipotent book suspended in front of him. Chen Hao just took out the God Realm Star card from the card slot of the Open Universal Book, but now there is an extra card in the card slot where the God Realm Star card was originally placed. Seeing this card, Chen Hao's eyebrows slowly wrinkled. Planet Gene Xiaoying. Health value, 1%. No wonder Xiaoying was not seen. It turned out that she was seriously injured by the light. Even Xiaoying, who has planetary genes, can't resist that light. "What is that light?" Chen Hao asked. As Chen Hao finished speaking, a 3D stereoscopic projection appeared in front of Chen Hao. You can see the ant planet in the projection. Next to this planet, there is a metal sphere as big as the moon. There is a place on this sphere that looks like it has been cut off with a knife. It looks very flat. On the platform, an extremely huge laser cannon barrel was driven, and the barrel was facing the entrance of a warp passage. This barrel is so big that it's a bit shocking. The information processor gave the answer: the planetary annihilation cannon is a super weapon developed by the ant civilization. The destructive power it produces is enough to destroy a planet. No wonder Xiaoying, who has planetary genes, can't withstand the attack of this thing. Chen Hao was a little unhappy. Chen Hao has forgotten how long it has been since he was so unhappy. Pets that have been kept for such a long time will only get hurt at the beginning. By now, Chen Hao had forgotten how long it had been since he had injured these little guys. But this civilization, which did not know whether to live or die, directly injured her seriously. Chen Hao was unhappy. He withdrew his gaze and looked at the ant planet coldly. "If you want to die, then let you die." After the words fell, Chen Hao's figure disappeared from the spot. When Chen Hao appeared again, he appeared inside the ant planet. He stood on the surface of the planet. Chen Hao wanted to do an experiment. What would happen if I were on the surface of this planet and released the gravitational pull of the small diamond? Thinking of doing it, Chen Hao centered on himself and opened up the full gravity of the little diamond. Boom! With loud noises, the ground under Chen Hao's feet began to collapse. I am immortal and I raise a divine beast in another world. Author, Chen Wunian. Chapter 425. There is a huge basement under the ant planet. In the basement, a giant queen ant with a body of 20 meters high stays inside, with a huge abdomen. At this moment, it stays in the basement, and in front of it are groups of worker ants bringing it food. The queen ant is looking forward. In front of the queen ant, there is a huge 3D stereo projection device, on which the entire planet can be seen. At the same time, This 3D stereo projection device is surrounded by countless screens. These screens show everything happening on the entire planet. The queen ant has two huge compound eyes, and everything on the screen can be seen in the compound eyes. In front of these screens, there are operating tables, and on the operating tables, ant-like life forms are operating the operating tables. The queen ant stares at the big screen in front of her, and the antennae on her forehead move. The air is filled with various chemical information. Humans communicate through language and sound, while this ant civilization communicates through chemical information emitted by the antennae. When humans speak, they produce sounds, which are captured by the ears. When humans receive information, they can know what the other party is saying. This ant civilization uses antennae to emit chemical information, and other ants have antennae to obtain these chemical information, so they can know what the other party is saying. At this moment, the queen ant spoke. The target disappeared. Was it evaporated by the planetary annihilation cannon? An operator responded on the console, the space data where the other party is located has changed. It can be inferred that the target uses a warp engine to move. The queen ant's antennae moved, and it said, "Where did it go?" "Searching," said the operator. Boom, suddenly, there was a loud noise. The whole earth shook. The queen ant sent a message, "What's going on?" Suddenly, another operator said, "A huge gravitational source has been detected on the surface of the planet." "What?" The queen ant was a little puzzled. Boom boom boom. There were bursts of loud noises on the surface. The operator's hand, which was wrapped in the natural exoskeleton armor unique to insects, quickly tapped on the operator. The operator's compound eyes stared at various information on the screen in front. A gravitational wave is coming at the speed of light. The size of this gravitational wave is comparable to that of a sub-brown dwarf. The gravitational wave merges with the gravitational wave of our planet, and these two gravitational waves are transmitting to the surface. This terrifying gravitational wave will act on the entire planet we are on. The queen ant was a little confused. What will happen? "You will die," the operator said. "This gravitational wave is too strong. The moment the gravitational wave acts on our planet, all life on the entire planet will cease to exist." When the operator's voice fell, the entire basement made a loud noise. Boom, the ceiling of the basement suddenly sank and hit the operator. The queen ant was stunned and was about to speak. As a result, the entire queen ant's body suddenly seemed to be pressed halfway by something, and the whole body slammed to the ground, and the body became flat. When Chen Hao stood on the surface of this planet, showing all the gravity control abilities shared with him by the little diamond, Chen Hao could see that the surface under his feet quickly cracked into cracks, and then his body suddenly sank. The surface of the earth collapsed rapidly. At this moment, Chen Hao felt as if he had plunged into the sea in an instant. But now, with the help of the vision of the little diamond, watching the scene from outside the planet, it was completely different. When Chen Hao's body fell into the planet, the whole planet was like a huge water ball, thrown into a sponge that was extremely absorbent but very small in size. Near the sponge, the water rushed towards the sponge frantically. But this is not a water ball, this is a planet. It was not water that rushed towards Chen Hao, but rocks. With Chen Hao as the center, the whole planet condensed frantically around Chen Hao. But the problem is that this planet is spherical. How can a spherical planet be centered on Chen Hao? The result is very simple, that is, the whole sphere began to crack, the matter began to detach from the spherical surface, and then condensed towards Chen Hao. At the point where it first came into contact with Chen Hao, the entire planet was subjected to the terrifying gravity from Chen Hao. The gravity center of the entire planet was attracted by Chen Hao and moved madly towards Chen Hao. From Chen Hao's perspective, this approach was like he himself was trapped in the planet, but in fact, the planet was attracted by the gravity emitted by Chen Hao, causing the entire planet to move towards Chen Hao. Chen Hao's body was trapped inside the planet, and then he could feel countless rocks rushing towards him madly with himself as the center. Chen Hao's eyes became dark, and his body was still falling, but Chen Hao didn't care. Although Chen Hao's body was flesh and blood, he couldn't be hurt by the immortal buff, so Chen Hao didn't care. However, in a place that Chen Hao didn't see, on the surface of the planet, the buildings built by the ant civilization collapsed. Boom boom boom. The buildings collapsed, and the ant people who were working stopped working and looked around on the street one by one. They first saw the ground crack, and then their bodies seemed to be pressed down by an invisible force. The exoskeleton armor supporting their bodies cracked, and their entire bodies were pressed to the ground, with white blood pouring out of their bodies. Everything on the surface, whether it was buildings or life, was crushed by gravity at this moment. And outside the surface of this planet, the artificial planetary ring was subjected to Chen Hao's gravity and the gravity of the planet itself, and the whole began to shrink wildly. The planetary ring suddenly sank into the interior of the planet, and all the life forms living on the planetary ring died. Boom boom boom. The entire planet suddenly shrank. In an instant, the entire volume of the entire planet shrank by a full double, and all the life inside the planet was compressed into ordinary matter and merged with the entire planet. No one could survive this terrifying gravity, except Chen Hao. As the entire planet shrank, Chen Hao's body disappeared inside the planet, and he appeared again, appearing outside the planet. Chen Hao released the gravity, and he stood outside the planet and looked at the planet in front of him. The planet was only half the size, and the surface of the planet was red at this moment. Magma was flowing on the surface of the planet, turning the entire planet into a red planet. And all the life on the planet had completely ceased to exist. Chen Hao narrowed his eyes. Now this planet can be used for experiments by the Fire Phoenix. Ant civilization is really a stupid and overconfident civilization. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I am immortal and I raise a divine beast in another world. Author, Chen Wunian. Chapter 426. Chen Hao opened the universal book and took out a card from it. Chen Hao waved his hand, and the card flew out and turned into a silver metal ring. This huge metal ring appeared at the equator of the rocky planet in front of him. The silver ring glowed white, and the white light covered the entire rocky planet. With a flash of light, the planet and the silver ring disappeared together. Two cards appeared in front of Chen Hao. It was the star-catching ring card and a rocky planet card. Rocky planet and star. Although it is called ant star, under the huge gravitational compression just now, all the ant people on ant star have been crushed at this moment and merged with the planet. It can be said that there is no ant-man on the entire planet now. The mass of ant star is 1.3 Earth masses. Seeing this mass, Chen Hao stretched his eyebrows. The mass of this thing is about the same as that of the Earth. As he said, Chen Hao retracted his sight and looked at the red dwarf in the distance, which was emitting red light. The red dwarf is different from the sub-brown dwarf from which the small diamond evolved. This is a red star, and the light it emits is red. Chen Hao remembered that the sun in the solar system emits yellow light, so the sun is a yellow dwarf. However, the brightness of the light emitted by the red dwarf is obviously not as bright as the sun. Chen Hao retracted his gaze and looked at the 5 rocky planets left by the red dwarf. These rocky planets, the smallest is less than 0.04 times the size of the Earth, and the largest is only 7 times the size of the Earth. The mass of these 5 rocky planets combined is only 10 times that of the Earth, which is not as good as that of a gas planet, Chen Hao muttered. The gas planet with the smallest mass is also as large as 14 times the mass of the Earth. The rocky planet is too small. Now the mass of the little diamond is too large. If the little diamond wants to continue to evolve, it will be faster to devour the gas giant planet. Devouring these rocky planets with huge and small masses is simply a waste of time. These rocky planets, the beast masters now need a lot of resources to study science, and perhaps these planets can just be used for them to play. Chen Hao took out the star-catching ring card. The star-catching rings appeared above these rocky planets one by one, and then circled these rocky planets, and one after another rocky planets became one after another rocky planet cards. All of a sudden, Chen Hao had 6 rocky planet cards. Chen Hao put these 6 rocky planet cards into the universal book. His sight fell on the red dwarf. Chen Hao looked at the red dwarf in front of him. Red dwarfs are the smallest stars and are the evolution of brown dwarfs. Chen Hao touched his chin, wondering how long it would take for the little diamond to evolve from the current sub-brown dwarf to a red dwarf. Thinking about it, Chen Hao glanced at the translucent screen in front of him, which showed the mass of the red dwarf. The red dwarf is 237 Jupiter masses. More than 200 Jupiter masses. I remember that the current little diamond is only 3.5 Jupiter masses. This gap is a bit too big. Chen Hao touched his chin. At this moment, a figure appeared behind Chen Hao. "Where did you come from?" a voice suddenly sounded in Chen Hao's mind. When Chen Hao heard the voice, he was slightly startled and looked back subconsciously. Behind Chen Hao, there stood a humanoid creature. This creature looked like a humanoid ant standing on 2 feet. It stood in the void, and a pair of black compound eyes unique to ants reflected Chen Hao's appearance. "Ant-Man." Chen Hao was startled. "Aren't all the ants on that planet dead?" Chen Hao was too lazy to talk nonsense with this guy. He raised his hand to him. Then released the gravitational waves of the diamond star. However, the thin humanoid ant in front of him did not move. This gravitational wave had no effect on it. Chen Hao's eyes had a hint of doubt, and he looked at his hands. Interesting. When the Ant-Man spoke, the huge tentacles on his forehead moved. "Your body mass obviously cannot have such a strong gravitational wave. These gravitational waves come from other celestial bodies. You rely on this gravitational wave to destroy the civilization I created, right?" Chen Hao's heart was shocked, and he looked at the Ant-Man in front of him. This guy is not a life form of the ant civilization, it is the god of creation, the creator of that ant civilization. The gravitational waves of the sub-brown dwarf are actually useless to this guy, which is something Chen Hao did not expect. Chen Hao stared at the Ant-Man. "Do you want to avenge your civilization?" The compound eyes of the Ant-Man are similar to the eyes of ants, with many hexagrams forming small grids inside. At this moment, the small grid reflects Chen Hao's appearance. Although this guy's eyes look different from human eyes, Chen Hao can clearly feel that this guy is staring at him. The Ant-Man said slowly, "My name is Frocco, and I belong to the Zerg civilization branch of the 7 major civilizations. Judging from your appearance, you should be from Pangu civilization." Pangu civilization, Chen Hao was slightly stunned. Pangu, Chen Hao knows, but Pangu civilization, Chen Hao does not understand. Pangu is a myth and legend on Earth, so does Pangu civilization mean Earth civilization? That's not right. When Chen Hao left Earth, the civilization of Earth did not even have the ability to leave the planet. Who can know Earth? Chen Hao looked at Ant-Man and asked, "Are you talking about Earth civilization?" The compound eyes on the huge ant head of Ant-Man were staring at Chen Hao. Chen Hao could not see the expression of the ant head in front of him, nor did he know what this guy was thinking. At this time, Ant-Man spoke, "It seems that you are not from Pangu civilization, but the technological power you possess is very strong." As he said that, Ant-Man raised his hand and pointed at Chen Hao with his exoskeleton finger. "You destroyed the civilization I created, which was the hard work of Frog for more than 300,000 years. You now have 2 choices, one is to hand over your information database as compensation and give me the technological power you possess, and the other is to die." Hearing this, Chen Hao completely understood the intention of this guy. The civilization it created was destroyed by Chen Hao, so it set its sights on the technology displayed by Chen Hao. It suspected that Chen Hao came from some powerful civilization, so for the sake of insurance, it specifically asked Chen Hao whether he came from that civilization. Now that it is confirmed that Chen Hao is not from the life form called Pangu civilization, it reveals its true purpose. It wants Chen Hao's technological power. Want to obtain the technological power to use gravitational waves? After confirming this guy's idea, Chen Hao's mouth corners rose, haha. He smiled, want to plunder the technology I have? Then let me see what you can do. It is not surprising that the gravitational waves possessed by the little diamond cannot pose a threat to this guy. The little diamond is currently just a sub-brown dwarf. The powerful civilization technology can even easily destroy a planet, and the current little diamond is just a celestial body between a planet and a star. And this guy in front of him obviously comes from a more advanced civilization. It is normal that he is not afraid of the gravitational waves of the little diamond at this moment. Of course, Chen Hao is not afraid of the threat of this guy in front of him. Because he is immortal. I am immortal and I raise a divine beast in another world. Author, Chen Wunian. Chapter 427. How stupid Frog said lightly, and it raised its hand. As soon as it raised its hand, a black long sword appeared out of thin air in its hand. Chen Hao's sight fell on the black long sword. Sharp silver weapon, second generation sharp silver sword. Sharp silver, a new artificially synthesized substance, has extremely high density and sharpness. The cold weapon synthesized by sharp silver is enough to destroy most of the known substances in the universe. Seeing this explanation, Chen Hao stretched his eyebrows. At this time, Frog moved, and his figure appeared in front of Chen Hao. This speed is almost the same as teleportation, and it instantly crossed a distance of 1,000 meters. The sharp silver sword swung and slashed at Chen Hao's chest. The blade slid past Chen Hao's clothes. Ant-Man was startled, and he stared at the place where he attacked, but found that not only did he not cut Chen Hao's body, but he did not even cut Chen Hao's clothes. Ant-Man retracted the sharp silver sword, changed to stab, and stabbed Chen Hao's chest with a sword. The tip of the sword pierced Chen Hao's clothes on his chest, but it couldn't penetrate. Chen Hao looked at the Ant-Man in front of him, who was about the same size as himself, and said playfully, "The stronger the technology, the more weapons will regress. Hot weapons are no longer used, and cold weapons are used instead." The Ant-Man's body quickly retreated, and he stared at Chen Hao, third generation shield silver body. Chen Hao heard this guy say another word he didn't understand. He looked at the Ant-Man and said, "What if it is, what if it isn't?" The Ant-Man said, "I can't destroy your body, but in this world, the ability to attack is not just physical destruction." Hearing this, Chen Hao immediately realized what this guy wanted to do. It wanted to use mental attacks. What's wrong?" The Ant-Man's voice had a hint of surprise. "Why is my consciousness attack ineffective against you?" Sure enough. According to Chen Hao's current understanding, a creature is composed of two types, physical and spiritual. After this, Ant-Man found that his physical attack was ineffective against Chen Hao. He planned to use mental attacks. However, this guy called mental attacks consciousness attacks. Chen Hao looked at the puzzled look of Ant-Man. Chen Hao also realized something. The god who gave him an immortal body was in a civilization level far above the civilization called Frog. The Ant-Man in front of him really couldn't hurt him, but Chen Hao didn't know how to deal with this guy called Frog. Suddenly, Chen Hao had a flash of inspiration. The universal book appeared in front of Chen Hao. Chen Hao reached out and opened the book, and took out a card from the book. Starcatcher Ring. After Chen Hao took a look at the Starcatcher Ring card, he looked at the Ant-Man in front of him. Ant-Man noticed Chen Hao's sight, and it seemed to realize something. It turned its face sideways, and a black warp engine channel suddenly appeared in front of it. It hurried to the warp engine channel. Chen Hao waved his hand, and the Starcatcher ring card flew out. The card disappeared, and at the same time, a silver ring appeared on Ant-Man and quickly put it on Ant-Man. Ant-Man's body. Let me go. Ant-Man struggled to break free from the silver ring and escape from here, but no matter how hard he struggled, he couldn't move. The silver ring lit up with white light, and the light engulfed the entire body of Ant-Man. Two cards appeared in front of Chen Hao. One was the Starcatcher ring, and the other was Zerg Warrior Frog. Taming degree, 0. Seeing this, Chen Hao reached out, took the card, looked at the information on the card, and muttered, "It seems that this guy's level is not higher than the star level. However, the knowledge this guy has is not bad." Chen Hao said, "Information processor, how much do you know about the 7 civilizations this guy mentioned?" Searching the information database for information about the 7 civilizations. The search is over, and there is no information about the 7 civilizations in the information database. The mechanical voice of the information processor sounded. No. Chen Hao frowned. What about Pangu civilization? Is there any data record? There is no data record about Pangu civilization in the information database. Hearing this, Chen Hao's eyebrows relaxed. He understood. Just like when this thing was a database before, the information it could know was only within the planetary system at that time, and it didn't know anything beyond the planetary system. Now, although it has evolved from a database to an information processor, it knows more things, but it still doesn't have the information of some things. In other words, this thing still has room for evolution. If you want to know the information of the 7 civilizations and the so-called Pangu civilization, then you can only do it through this guy named Frog. Frog's current taming degree is 0, and it will take time to tame it. Now the little diamond star is devouring the planet to gain mass, and I have nothing to do. Let's go back to the God Realm first. Thinking of this, Chen Hao took out the God Realm star card from the Universal Book and waved his hand. The God Realm star appeared in this void, and the God Realm star replaced the position of the previous ant planet. Chen Hao looked at the God Realm star in front of him. For the God Realm star, Chen Hao had been away for more than 10 years. Now it seems that there is no major change in the appearance of the God Realm star. Chen Hao moved his body and disappeared on the spot. When Chen Hao appeared again, he appeared in his own room. "Master," suddenly, a voice came. Hearing this voice, Chen Hao found a shadow in his room. This silver-haired girl is none other than Yuki Anna. Snow Girl was standing there holding a broom, looking at Chen Hao with her eyes. Seeing this, Chen Hao smiled. "Why are you interrupting? Where are the angels? Cleaning the palace has always been the job of angels." Yuki Anna explained, "I have always been responsible for the master's food. When the master is away, Yuki Anna has nothing to do. When she was free, she wanted to come over and clean up." Hearing this, Chen Hao nodded slightly. He looked outside the balcony. Looking out through the balcony, he could see the blue sky outside and the sunshine hanging in the sky. That is the light brought by the artificial sun carried on the artificial planet ring. Chen Hao looked at Xuanyu. "Has anything happened on the God Realm planet during my absence?" Snow Girl turned the broom into a card. She stood there quietly, looked at Chen Hao, and said respectfully, "Everyone has been studying the truth left by the master, and they are all quite busy." Hearing this, Chen Hao smiled. It seems that those guys who only knew how to fight and kill in the past have now become more interested in learning and thinking. Sure enough, giving them that knowledge and letting them learn is the right thing to do. Chen Hao looked at Xuanyu. Xuanyu listened to Chen Hao's words and looked at Chen Hao, with no expression on her fair face. The Snow Girl is still as cold as ever and doesn't like to talk much. Chen Hao smiled and said, "Let Zayadi come over and I'll ask her something." Okay, the Snow Girl nodded slightly and then left. Chen Hao looked at Xuanu's back, thinking. I wonder how Yinglong Dazu and the others are doing with their research? It seems that Huofeng and Satya have finished the artificial Sunday. What are they working on now? Chen Hao is interested to know. I am immortal and I raise a divine beast in another world. Author, Chen Wunian. Chapter 428. Not long after Xuanu left, Chen Hao, who was waiting on the vine chair on the balcony, heard the sound. Dong dong. Hearing this voice, Chen Hao subconsciously looked back towards the balcony entrance and saw Xiadi walking from the door. As soon as Xiadi saw Chen Hao, her eyes lit up slightly, and a smile appeared on her face. She raised her hand and put it on her chest, and gave a slight salute to Chen Hao. Welcome home, master. Chen Hao nodded slightly, and he noticed that there was something different about Xiadi in front of him. Xiadi was wearing a white shirt on her upper body, black leather pants on her lower body, and a pair of exquisite high heels. Her close-fitting clothing outlines her tall and proud figure. Her long golden hair was tied into a high ponytail, exposing her white neck. Her snow-white skin makes her, a light-type monster, look particularly holy. This outfit is completely different from what Xiadi wore before. Xiadi used to wear clothes similar to ancient times, but now she is more inclined to wear the clothes of a modern urban professional beauty. Noticing Chen Hao's gaze, Xiadi seemed to realize that she was wearing something wrong. She smiled and said, Master, this is a dress invented by the goddess of flowers. It is said to make people look better. Flower god. Chen Hao nodded slightly. It turns out to be that guy, no wonder. It's not surprising that the goddess of flowers loves beauty and likes to study how to dress. However, she is also true. Others study high technology, but she studies clothing. It's okay not to accept it? Chen Hao said, where are Fire Phoenix and Xiaobai? What happened to those things? When Xiadi heard this, she looked to the right, and a black hole appeared on her right. She reached into the hole and took out a card. Transformation. Xiadi's voice sounded. The card turns into a crystal. This is a crystal in the shape of a six-pointed star. A triangular crystal is wrapped inside this transparent crystal, and there is a ball of light inside the crystal. As soon as the thing appeared, light immediately illuminated the entire room. Chen Hao looked at this thing, and then looked at Xiadi. Xiadi smiled and explained, Master, this is Huofeng and Satya's recent research results, many stars. Chen Hao blinked and said, wait a minute. There was a hint of doubt in Xiadi's eyes. Chen Hao looked at Xiadi, where did you take out the card just now? Xiadi showed an elegant smile, I don't have room to put the cards in this outfit, so I put the cards in my room. When I want to use them, I can build a warp channel and get them directly. In fact, Chen Hao had already guessed it, but hearing it with his own ears was still a bit strange to him. Use the warp drive to place things, and use the super light high technology as a way to store things. Call it overkill, but it seems to have some use. Forget it, Chen Hao was too lazy to think about this anymore. He looked at the glowing crystal suspended in front of Xiadi. Satya named this thing a portable star. Xiadi looked at Chen Hao respectfully. Satya said that this thing can be used as energy to supply various things. What this thing can do, the energy supplied is much more powerful than cores such as Godhead. Hearing this, Chen Hao immediately thought of the nuclear weapons he had encountered on the ant planet. Isn't this thing similar to the nuclear energy core used by the ant warriors of the ant civilization? Chen Hao showed a smile. Before, Satya and the others were just a few primitive creatures who could only use nano-elves for attack and defense. After giving them the information database owned by the information processor to browse, the gadgets they have researched now are comparable to some advanced civilizations. Good. But, it's not enough. Suddenly, a voice came. Chen Hao looked at the source of the sound and saw Huofeng standing there, with her hands folded across her chest, a proud smile on her face, and her eyes looking this way. Chen Hao looked at the little guy and smiled, my words are not enough, but my face is full of pride. When Huo Feng heard this, she stuck out her tongue. She chuckled and said, of course I have to be proud. This is something that Sister Satya and I have studied together for decades. With that said, Huo Feng came over and sat next to Chen Hao. He looked at Chen Hao with a smile on his face asking for credit, Master, please praise me, how am I doing? Chen Hao was happy. He said with a smile, very good, really good. If other civilizations were to study these things, they might not be able to complete them in hundreds of thousands of years. You two have only been here for a few decades, which shows that you are working very hard, very talented too. As expected of the Fire Phoenix. A smile suddenly broke out on Huo Feng's little face, Master. She was happy. When she was happy, she jumped directly into Chen Hao's arms, hugged Chen Hao's neck, and rubbed her face directly against Chen Hao's face. Chen Hao looked confused and smiled bitterly, okay, okay. He pushed the excited Huo Feng away and said with a smile, be good, sit down and sit down. You just said, it's not enough. What do you mean? Huo Feng grinned, then sat down on the chair again obediently. She smiled and was about to speak. Let me explain this. At this time, a voice came. When Chen Hao heard this, he looked towards the source of the sound. I saw Satya standing aside in a black outfit. She was leaning over her chest with her hands folded, looking at this side with a pair of bright black eyes. Seeing Chen Hao coming, Satya smiled and said, Master, welcome home. Satya is now wearing a black leather jacket and black high-heeled boots. The leather jacket fits her tall and proud figure, and the black high-heeled boots set off her tall figure to the fullest, which looks very eye-catching. Well, with Satya's high-profile personality, she is indeed suitable for this kind of dress. Satya noticed Chen Hao's gaze, she smiled, put her hands down, put her hands under her chest, deliberately turned sideways, showing her S-shaped figure, Master, how is it? Does it look good? Chen Hao's mouth twitched, he retracted his gaze, it's okay, just now you said you want you to explain, what to explain? Satya smiled and said, it's like this, now this mini star, we plan to use it as an energy source, but now the technology we can research can only make it stay stable in the crystal, and there is no way to stabilize its energy, so that it can stably supply energy to other things. Is that so? Chen Hao touched his chin, he looked at Satya, what about the artificial sun on the planetary ring? Satya smiled and explained, the supply I'm talking about is the kind of stable supply, constant energy output. Those artificial stars on the planetary ring are different, they don't need to be too stable. Hearing this, Chen Hao smiled, this is interesting, you and Huo Feng did a good job. Satya smiled at the exaggeration. However, unlike the Fire Phoenix, although Satya was very happy, she was not able to pounce directly like the Fire Phoenix. This was the difference in the personalities of the two little guys. What about Xiaobai and Dazu? How is their research on space technology going? Is there any progress? Chen Hao asked. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I am immortal and I raise a divine beast in another world. Author, Chen Wunian. Chapter 429. Xiaobai and Big Pig have increased the speed of the warp engine to 3 times the speed of light, Xiadi said aloud. Hearing this, Chen Hao's eyes lit up slightly. Previously, the speed of the warp engine that Xiaobai and Dazu could build was 1.8 times, but now there is no improvement, it is directly 1.2 times higher. Chen Hao nodded slightly, not bad. Seeing Chen Hao's satisfied look, Xiadi had a smile on her face. However, Master, the resources of the planet are getting less and less now, Fire Phoenix said loudly. Upon hearing this, Chen Hao looked at Huo Feng. Huo Feng looked at Chen Hao. To create an artificial sun, nuclear fusion reactions are needed. The elements required for nuclear fusion are easy to find, but if you want to stabilize nuclear fusion, you need the participation of an element called AI. The AI element is it's so rare that you can't find much of it in the entire VAF star. If we can't develop more AI elements, we won't be able to continue this research. Indeed, this is also a headache we have been having recently, Satya said aloud. Hearing this, Chen Hao smiled. It's very simple to solve this problem. Huo Feng and Satya looked at each other, with a hint of doubt in each other's eyes. They looked at Chen Hao. Book. Chen Hao summoned the universal book. He opened the universal book and took out 6 rock planet cards. Chen Hao handed the 6 rock planet cards to Huo Feng. When Huo Feng saw it, she reached out and took it. When she saw it, her eyes lit up slightly, and her face was suddenly full of surprise. This is a planet card. She couldn't help but look at Chen Hao. Chen Hao hummed, "These 6 planet cards are for your research and use. There are 6 in total. I believe they are enough for you and your brothers and sisters to research and use." There was a smile on Huo Feng's face, and she looked at Chen Hao. "This is the first time I have seen planets turned into cards." After saying that, she looked at Chen Hao and said with a smile, "Thank you, Master." Chen Hao smiled. Listening to Huo Feng's words, Chen Hao also realized one thing. The ability to turn matter into cards seemed to be unable to turn the earth under his feet into cards. In other words, at present, the only one who can turn planets into cards is himself. "Master," suddenly, a voice came. "I saw a little blond boy standing there, holding a sphere in his hand. This little boy is Chen Huang, whom he has not seen for many years." Chen Hao said with a smile, "Long time no see, Hina Yana Huang. What have you been busy with during this time?" Chen Huang was startled and said, "Master, Chen Huang is not young anymore. Also, Master, I have been studying the quantum observation system recently, and then, Master, I discovered this." With that said, Chen Huang raised the sphere in his hand, and the sphere flew away from his hand and flew into the air. Suddenly, the sphere projected a 3D image. Through this image, you can see what the God Realm star looks like. At the same time, Chen Hao could also see that near the God Realm star, there were more than 10 giant battleships flying towards the God Realm star. Chen Huang said, "Master, I just discovered this group of battleships while studying the quantum observation system. These battleships are flying towards us now. At their current speed, they will reach us within an hour." Chen Hao stroked his chin. "Can you observe the situation inside the battleship?" Ye Chen Huang nodded and waved his hand. The 3-dimensional image was converted into an image inside the battleship. Upon entering his eyes, Chen Hao's eyebrows relaxed slightly. Acquaintance. Carrying on these battleships are a group of warriors from the Ant civilization. Seeing these guys, Chen Hao understood what was going on. The Ant civilization is not limited to that one planet. After these guys saw that their companions were not killed, they wanted to come and take revenge. Chen Hao raised his face and noticed that the beast masters were all looking at him. "I have encountered these guys before," Chen Hao said. "I destroyed one of their colonial planets. They come here to take revenge on me." Huo Feng's eyes suddenly lit up. She stood up and said with a smile, "Master, leave these guys to me. I haven't done anything for a long time, and now my hands are very itchy." With that said, before Chen Hao could speak, Huo Feng spread his wings behind him and his body disappeared instantly. Chen Hao looked at the place where Huo Feng disappeared. He showed a helpless expression, and then looked at Chen Huang. "Is there a way to project Huo Feng's current situation?" Chen Huang said, "Of course, as long as the master needs it, it can be done at any time." With that said, Chen Huang operated on the projection screen. The screen zoomed in, focusing on Huo Feng. At this moment, Huo Feng's figure stood in the dark space, and what was in front of Huo Feng was the group of battleships flying towards this side. This battleship group looks nothing like it from the projection screen, but now the screen is zoomed in closer. Comparing the humanoid body of the Fire Phoenix with this group of battleships, the gap is too big. The Fire Phoenix stood in front of the battleship, just like a sesame seed standing in front of a watermelon. Incomparably small, as the battleship group approaches, from the perspective of the Fire Phoenix, only one giant battleship can be seen coming towards them. This giant battleship is too big. Huo Feng's face was full of smiles and she looked excited. She raised her hand, and a black hole appeared in front of her. She reached into the hole and took out a card. Change. The card turns into a portable star. More like a hydrogen bomb than a star. The principle of this thing is the same as that of a star, which is a nuclear fusion reaction, so it is called an artificial star, but compared to a real star, this thing is naturally not of the same order of magnitude. This thing should be more accurately described as a portable hydrogen bomb. As soon as the portable hydrogen bomb appeared, Huo Feng waved his hand. The hydrogen bomb was thrown to the battleship in front. The battleship lit up a protective shield. The portable hydrogen bomb exploded the moment it touched the protective shield. The fire rippled. As the fire spread, the protective shield was still bright. Huo Feng was startled and frowned. Seeing this, Chen Hao's eyebrows stretched, and civilization has already possessed nuclear energy technology, and the energy supply of this protective shield is probably also nuclear energy. It is a bit difficult to use a nuclear bomb to penetrate the protective shield of nuclear energy attack. Chen Hao frowned, and he had a bad premonition. Huo Feng failed to break the protective shield, and at the same time, the battleship had rushed over. Huo Feng moved his body and hurriedly avoided it. Suddenly, laser beams swooped towards the Fire Phoenix. The Fire Phoenix wanted to dodge, but the speed of the laser beams was not so easy to dodge. Suddenly, the Fire Phoenix's body disappeared from the spot. Supergiant laser beams over 500 meters wide swept past the place where the Fire Phoenix had just been. At the same time, in the palace, Chen Hao had an extra card in his hand, which was the Fire Phoenix's card. What a terrifying power of voice came from the side. Chen Hao came back to his senses and looked at Shataya. Shataya frowned, her face full of surprise and solemnity. Noticing Chen Hao's sight, Shataya adjusted her mood. She frowned and said, "The speed of the laser beam is the speed of light. The Fire Phoenix can't dodge it." Fortunately, the master called her back. Otherwise, her body can't withstand such destructive weapons at all. I am immortal and I raise a divine beast in another world. Author, Chen Wunian. Chapter 430. It's really terrifying. I have never seen this level of attack power before when I was on VAF planet, Shatya said with emotion. In the eyes of the humans in VAF planet, the beast masters in the main god stage are omnipotent. But in fact, the master beasts in the main god stage are weaker than the genetically evolved beasts. Even if genetic evolution reaches the planetary level, for an advanced civilization with the aerospace level in front of us and who has mastered nuclear energy technology, it is just a matter of launching a planetary annihilation cannon. Huo Feng and Satya have been staying on the God Realm star for a long time. The places they often stay are places like the God Realm star and VAF star. They think that they are invincible in the world. But obviously, this is just an illusion. In the vast universe, there are more powerful and more incredible beings. Just like this ant civilization. Cheng Huang frowned on the side and said, "Master, the other party's technological power has completely crushed us, and our current strength is completely insufficient to fight against them." Speaking of this, Cheng Huang looked at Chen Hao. "Master, what should we do?" "What to do?" Chen Hao stared at the approaching warships that were quickly heading this way. "The only way to deal with these guys is to call Little Diamond back and let Little Diamond deal with them." "Master," suddenly, a voice came. Chen Hao glanced at Chen Huang, only to find that Chen Zhuang's little boy's baby face was now a little more nervous. Chen Hao's eyes fell on the projection screen, and he could see the group of battleships, each one pointing the muzzle of the laser cannon carried by the battleships in the direction of the God Realm star. Seeing this, Chen Hao frowned. Are these guys planning to attack directly from a long distance? Suddenly, a series of supergiant lasers with a diameter of more than 500 meters were shot from the muzzle of the battleship. The terrifying lasers were like meteors, passing through the vast space and hitting the God Realm star. The speed of the laser is equal to the speed of light. If the distance is very close, even Xiao Ying, who has the fastest reaction rate owned by Chen Hao, will not be able to react. But now, these warships are still some distance away from here. There are still a few minutes left when the laser is fired. Suddenly, a huge figure appeared in front of these lasers. She held a long sword and waved her hand. A supergiant energy shield appeared in front of her. Boom 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 boom. All lasers were intercepted by this terrifying energy shield. At the moment of interception, the laser burst out and bright light illuminated the surroundings. A large area of dark space was illuminated by this terrifying light. Chen Hao was startled. What? Chen Hao looked intently, and when the white light dispersed, the figure was revealed in front of Chen Hao. This is... Seeing that figure, Chen Hao's pupils froze. I saw a woman wearing armor with a pair of white wings standing in the air. Angel. The look of that guy reminded Chen Hao of someone for a moment. God. This angel is completely different from the angels that Chen Hao encountered in VAF Star that evolved from beast controlling beasts. She has long silver hair, white skin, and a white halo surrounding her whole body, making her look dreamy and unreal. However, Chen Hao remembered the face of the god. This guy was not the god who resurrected him, but Chen Hao could feel something similar to that god from her body. After the angel helped God Realm Star block the attack, her figure disappeared from the spot. What are you looking at? Suddenly, a somewhat neutral female voice sounded. Chen Hao came back to his senses and looked at the source of the sound. I saw the silver-haired angel just now sitting on the railing of the balcony, crossing his legs and looking at Chen Hao. It's so fast, Satya said. The angel's gaze fell on Chen Hao and noticed the novelty in Chen Hao's eyes. She showed a smile. Let me introduce myself first. My name is Ling. I come from the angel civilization and am responsible for maintaining the balance of the universe. I helped you block the Zerg. It will take a long time for them to accumulate energy again. You can take advantage of this time to escape. I advise you to act quickly, Ling Xiao said. Don't waste time. I only have enough energy to help you once, but I can't help you a second time. After saying that, Ling came down from the railing, stood in the corridor, swept across the people on the field, and said with a smile, I think the civilization of your planet has reached the aerospace level. You can choose to abandon this planet and escape, or wait until they finish accumulating energy, then eat another laser shot from them. Angel civilization? Don't rush this yet, Chen Hao suddenly said. Ling looked at Chen Hao. Your information database has been invaded, and the information processor has resisted the invasion for you at this time, the voice of the information processor sounded in Chen Hao's mind. At the same time as the sound of the information processor sounded, Chen Hao noticed that Ling's eyes were shining with curiosity. He looked Chen Hao up and down, and she showed a smile. Interesting, this is obviously an aerospace civilization, but you actually have the technology to hide the information database. Satya's eyes were filled with doubts, and those on the side, Cheng Huang and Zayadi, also had doubts in their eyes. They didn't know what Ling was talking about. However, when Chen Hao listened to this guy's words and cooperated with the reminder from the information processor just now, Chen Hao knew it all at once. This guy just wanted to read his information database, but was stopped by the information processor. To put it more easily, this guy wanted to read his own memory, and the information processor stopped him. The ability to read the information database is obviously also a kind of advanced technology. She was surprised that this planetary civilization was obviously not as good as hers, but Chen Hao had the ability to stop her from reading the information database. Chen Hao frowned. It's not polite to read other people's information database casually. Ling was startled, and she smiled. Indeed, I apologize to you for my behavior. However, there is no way, this is a habit of mine, and this habit has been maintained for more than 2,000 years. It is difficult to change. 2,000 years? Chen Hao was startled. This guy has lived for more than 2,000 years? He looked at Ling. Let's not talk about this, I need to know one thing, why do you want to help us? Chen Hao doesn't like to accept help from others for nothing, he needs to know the reason. This guy suddenly appeared and then spent his own energy to help himself. What is the reason? What is her purpose? Chen Hao doesn't think that a great good man will appear out of nowhere in this universe. Hearing this, Angel Ling smiled slightly. The reason is very simple, I hate the guys from the Zerg civilization. Wherever the Zerg civilization expands, there are angels. I am responsible for the angels in this area.